Smile Dip! I thought this stuff was banned in America.
Maybe they had a good reason.
Watch out for your treats as we list more banned candies that can kill. We all know that candy isn't exactly the most healthy, but how much of a risk really is it?
Did you just steal candies? Yes!
Candy corn.
Oreos with candy corn filling. Holy hell, yes!
Candy corn is probably one of the most hated Halloween candies out there, at least in America, according to a survey done by CandyStore.com. Despite its hated status, a lot of people can't celebrate Halloween without candy corn. However, these devilish candies might be more of a trick than a treat. The reason is pretty simple. It's not a very healthy candy.
Hey, what?
Well, duh, it's candy, but this particular one has some ingredients that make it even worse. You see, most of the natural ingredients that claim to be in candy corn have actually been replaced by artificial and chemical versions of them. This is mostly to reduce the cost of production and to increase profit. Even brands that list real honey in their ingredients have their fair share of high sugar levels. A serving size of candy corn, which is about 19 pieces, contains 28 grams of sugar. But that's not the only issue. Another key ingredient, the coloring yellow number 5, has been linked to rare but sometimes severe allergic reactions, and also runs the risk of being contaminated by cancer-causing substances.
And there's a candy corn in this one.
Well, they can't all be winners, can they?
So yeah, definitely the perfect spooky candy for Halloween after all. Lucas Mexican Candy.
That Mexican candy giving you nerve damage again?
Probably, but who even cares?
Back when it was first introduced, Lucas Mexican Candy was one of the most in-demand products from South America all over the world. However, it was also one of the most controversial ones. Lucas Mexican Candy was a unique, wildly tasty treat with odd flavor combinations. It was a chamoy, a typical blend of saltiness, sourness, and sweetness made from pickled fruits, perfect for those who liked spicy, sour candies.
Spicy.
It came in a little shaker container. Kids could sprinkle the treat on fruit or even directly into their mouths for some instant flavor burst. But that's not exactly what every kid used it for. A lot of times, Lucas Candy was seen being shaken onto the table, arranged into a line, and then sniffed.
Kids these days.
Yeah, not exactly a kid-friendly candy anymore. It immediately worried parents and the company as well. The close similarity to illicit substance use was explained away as merely the result of using the product wrong, but that didn't stop kids from doing it. This could have maybe been overlooked if it wasn't for the test results showing that the candy contained twice the amount of lead allowable by the FDA. That discovery was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Lucas Mexican Candy was banned. Lollies Pipe.
Wait a minute, Kent. That is not candy.
Here is another candy that has been accused of glamorizing illicit substances, only this time it was a little more obvious. The Lollies Pipe was an edible candy from the late 2000s that resembled a smoking pipe, just like the ones some grown-ups use to smoke their greens. One of their marketing campaigns even claimed that they were flame-proof so that they could be used over and over again. Even though they were available in a wide range of colors and were made of candy, they were never intended for kids.
You're not for kids.
They were targeted at adult smokers. Lollies Pipes used to be sold solely online, and you had to be 18 and over to purchase one, as it should be. However, when the Lollies Pipes made their way into retail stores, the real problems began. It was candy, and it had a weird shape, so obviously it interested kids, and they started asking more and more questions about it. Parents started complaining to the company that these Lollies Pipes were promoting bad habits to underage people. The parents were right, and the candy pipe was immediately banned from every 7-Eleven shop in Indiana. The inappropriate candy was sent back to its place online, and you can still find it there today. Roadkill Gummy Candy.
I'd rather be Roadkill. That can be arranged.
With so many different types of gummy candies available, it's imperative to try and stand out as much as possible. Whether it's with a funky flavor or a different color or shape, there are endless ways to make your product unique. However, there are times when maybe sticking to a regular gummy wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Gummy bears and gummy worms.
This applies to the time Kraft thought they had revolutionized the world of candy by coming up with Roadkill Gummy Candy. This very controversial bag of gummies featured all sorts of colorful animals, from squirrels, snakes, and even chickens that had been, well, splattered. They even had tire marks on them, just to add a little more realism. Even though these candies were meant to be fun and harmless, animal rights activists didn't seem to think so.
This is clearly a case of animal cruelty.
Apparently, it was promoting the idea of injuring animals. Activists claimed that by representing critters run over by cars as a fun treat, it would encourage children to be cruel to animals, and that it was sending the wrong message. After numerous lawsuits, protests, and letter-writing campaigns, Kraft had to pull the gummies from the market and sold off the remaining of their inventory. Exploding gum.
Are you chewing gum?
Chewing gum is probably one of the more multi-purpose types of candy. You can blow bubbles, use it to distract yourself, focus, or just chew endlessly. Before you get too worked up, no one has ever died from chewing regular chewing gum. And contrary to popular belief, no, swallowing gum will not kill you.
Made me swallow my gum.
Sure, some cases of extreme chewing causing an insanely high sugar intake have been found, but nothing directly related to the act of chewing gum. However, there was one particular incident that had deadly results. Back in 2009, a Ukrainian chemistry student wanted to experiment with various chemicals during his Christmas break. As a way to enhance the sourness of his favorite gum and prolong the taste, he found out that dipping it in citric acid before chewing it was the perfect way to achieve his goal. However, one fateful night, he dipped it in the wrong bowl. The bowl contained an unidentified chemical, possibly an explosive.
Well, that's unfortunate.
All it took was one chew, and the gum exploded in his mouth. Sadly, the 25-year-old student died from his injuries. A mistake that cost him his life, but it was also a very important lesson for all the candy companies. Never mess with your chewing gum recipes. Fun dip.
That sounds like fun!
It is fun indeed to consume an insane amount of sugar, especially when it's licked off of a candy stick. With so many fun and flavorful options, Fun Dip is the perfect way to get that tangy sugar directly into the body. If you're looking for high blood pressure test results and a quick trip to the dentist, then grab a Fun Dip because this is where you're headed. A stick made of sugar dipped into a packet of more sugar doesn't exactly scream healthy. Yes, the calorie count is relatively low, but all the trouble lies in the sugar. After all, sugar accounts for about 90% of the whole candy. In one single packet, you're looking at a good 13 grams of pure sugar.
Holy sugar!
At this point, you might as well just dip your tongue directly into the sugar bowl at home. It might save you a step or two. But obviously, sugar isn't the only issue. In the past, some young and bright people have tried to make Fun Dip a little more recreational by inhaling the little powder through their noses. What is wrong with people?
Humans are odd.
Needless to say, the effects an overly sweet candy powder has on your nasal cavity are less than pleasurable. Fun Dip inhaled into the lungs, nosebleeds, and all sorts of health risks can occur, so please don't ever try this. Be satisfied with the little stick and leave it at that. Free candy.
Oh, sweet, they're just handing out free candy.
Who doesn't love free stuff? Better yet, who doesn't love free candy? As long as it's not from a stranger in a van, it's one of the best treats you can get.
Free candy? I'm 40 years old! I want free candy!
However, in Madrid, Spain, the tradition of giving away sweet treats has been banned. Every year on the 5th of January, most Spanish towns and cities hold a Cabalgata de Reyes, a Christmas parade. It's one of the most anticipated nights of the year for kids. The Three Kings, also known as the Three Wise Men, arrive atop their floats bearing mountains of sweets and gifts. One of the traditions is to throw candy from the carriage into the crowd, but this practice has led to several injuries as children scramble to collect as much candy as they can.
Free candy!
An unfortunate incident happened in 2013 that put an abrupt stop to the much-loved tradition. A 6-year-old boy was killed after he was run over by the Christmas carriage as he was collecting sweets in the streets. Ever since then, rules and regulations have been put into place to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. For instance, the Three Wise Men will only be able to gift children with sweets if the streets they're traveling on are equipped with appropriate security fencing. Otherwise, the usual sweet throwing is now banned. Kinder Surprise.
I brought you a little surprise.
A Kinder Surprise is arguably one of the best candies out there. You get a fun and collectible toy to assemble, and you get to enjoy some tasty, creamy chocolate at the same time.
That's a win, 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 win.
Not only are they super entertaining for kids, but they're also delicious for the adults. Well, at least that was back when they were still allowed in the United States. The little chocolate eggs are now banned in America because of a very old law from the 1930s. The law strictly prohibits any non-nutritional objects from being placed in any type of food. And that's exactly what Kinder Surprises are. Apparently, the little toys inside the candy could be confused by some kids as another candy, thus increasing the risks of choking.
This is the sweetest choking hazard anyone's ever given me.
While it may seem like going a little overboard, incidents have happened in the past. In 2016, for instance, a 3-year-old in France died after choking on a Kinder Surprise toy. In an attempt to avoid any confusion, Kinder came up with Kinder Joy, another type of chocolate egg with a toy, only this time packaged differently. One half of the egg contains the candy, a sweet cream topped with cocoa wafer bites, and the other the toy. But nothing can beat the real Kinder Surprise, so much so that 60,000 smuggled eggs were seized by U.S. border officials in 2011. Kinder Surprise is still sold in many parts of the world, just not in the US of A. Three Musketeers.
What's wrong with Three Musketeers?
I don't watch Three Musketeers. Yeah, it's just nougat.
The Three Musketeers bar is marketed as a lighter way to enjoy chocolate. No matter how tasty and creamy it might be, this statement is simply not true. In fact, it's probably the complete opposite. The Three Musketeers bar might have fewer calories than the regular candy bar, but what it lacks in calories, it compensates for in other departments. To put this into perspective, one single Three Musketeers bar contains a whopping 9 teaspoons of sugar, which is almost more sugar than 3 Krispy Kreme donuts.
Donut.
Oh, and it's also higher than the American Heart Association's recommended daily sugar intake. This one bar would blow your whole sugar budget for the day. Imagine giving this to a kid. But sugar isn't even the only concern. A high amount of both trans fats and saturated fats are found in the Three Musketeers bar. These two fats are to be avoided at all costs, and yet here they are in a candy bar we all love and enjoy. With a lot of the bar comprised of corn syrup and hydrogenated palm kernel oil, it's not exactly the most health-conscious choice to make. Sure, it has a light and fluffy nougat center wrapped in delectable chocolate and has been around for over 75 years, but that's no excuse for it to be a health hazard. The Three Musketeers has even found itself at the top of many lists as the unhealthiest candy bar out there. Sweethearts.
You're such a sweetheart.
When Valentine's Day rolls around, there is one thing, except chocolate of course, that everyone is dying to receive from the one they love. Sweethearts. You know, those colorful little sugar candies shaped like hearts with the cute messages on them? Around since 1886, these conversation hearts are bound to stir up nostalgia no matter how old you are, which is what makes them so irresistible for many. So what could be wrong with innocent little candies spreading around messages like "Be mine" and "Hug me"? Well, turns out these little treats aren't as harmless as they would have us believe. Indeed, sweethearts have been banned in some schools because they tend to cause a lot of hyperactivity in children. With the high sugar level found in the sweethearts, it's easy to have one too many and start bouncing off the walls.
Can't stop now, I'm having a sugar rush!
But the sugar rush they cause isn't the only reason why these little treats could potentially hurt you. A lot of talk on the internet has been made concerning these sweet messages that are written on the hearts. An article was written in 2019 about why this candy should be banned ASAP, pressing the idea that each heart was beaming with toxic masculinity, harassment, and sexual assault.
I just feel like you've got some toxic masculinity issues you need to work out.
They supported the argument by saying that by giving someone sweethearts, you would be forcefully telling them to kiss me or be mine or text me without their consent. Maybe that's taking things to the extreme, but no one wants to see these candies disappear, especially not on Valentine's Day. Did one of your favorites show up on this list? Let us know in the comments below. And stick around, tap or click on another great video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell.